So there must be that there's something unique in the meaning of this month of Adar that empowers the twofold, that we could be beyond Mazel, and then take that energy of beyond Mazel and bring it into our down here world that is Mazel oriented. Okay. How so? So let's look at back to screen share, and we'll see certain definitions of the name Adar that show. You know what? I'm just thinking if I could already start incorporating it about the Parsha. Okay, yeah. Let's speak about it open. We're going to intersperse about the Parsha in the month, okay? So, what is the name of our Parsha? Is Terumah, right? Which begins about the building the Mishkan, right? Now, what happened before this, right? We had the giving of the Torah, also interspersed with beginning to give us the very the mishpatim, right? The laws having to do with real world situations, etc. The quote unquote rational laws, even, right? And then before the giving the Torah was splitting the Red Sea, etc. So what is this unfolding? What is happening? What is the undercurrent theme here? In fact, it's a theme already going from the Parsha Bereshit until now. And that is that, right, God creates the whole world, right? And as great as the world is, and as much as God's divinity is in full glory and the world is so beautiful, but there's still this separateness between the divine and the physical. Surely the divine is animating, making the physical alive, but the divinity, so to speak, has not permeated through and through into the physical world. Therefore, even when the patriarchs and matriarchs did various mitzvot, as we know, they kept the Torah before giving the Torah, but the objects that they used, whether it was, let's say, the tefillin or the mezuzah, what have you, the objects themselves did not remain holy. They were merely media to do the mitzvah, to worship God. But the physical objects themselves did not concretize, be consecrated. Rather, they didn't have what we call in yeshiva learning a chefza of kedusha, the holiness of the object itself. There was only one thing that was actually, and that was circumcision, milah, which is why there's that whole repeat act of swearing by the Yerach, because that was the only place in the world, thing in the world, so to speak, where actual spirituality remained and absorbed into became part of the physical. All right. Then the Hebrews make it down to Egypt, and there's in the worst morass of you could think of an iniquity and paganism and They make it out and they clean themselves, wash themselves up. First going through the Red Sea, seeing the spectacular miracles. And what was happening in the Red Sea, there was this revelation from above, so powerful, that's never been seen before ever in the world until that point. So much so that it disrupted all of these, even the physicality, right? Water stood on edge, seabed dry. There are miracles upon miracles, or makes upon makes, even, as we read in Haggadah, right? How the Egyptians were smitten. In fact, if you look in the Mayam Lois, if I recall, he has the whole list of the least 150, if not more, the various miracles, makas that happen in splitting the Red Sea. So that's all great. So this, like like this unprecedented revelation of the divine now came to earth, but it still didn't it didn't last. It was just for whatever brief time for splitting the Red Sea, and B, it was overwhelming the physicality. To the contrary, it didn't affect the physical. It didn't make harmony with the physicality. It actually ruptured. It reversed the laws of nature, right? In fact, as we learned several weeks ago. From there, what happens? We go on another 6 weeks and make it to Mount Sinai. Then we're told, don't touch the mountain, right? And then then what happens? God comes down to the mountain, and Moses ascends the mountain. This is the moment, and the famous Medrash we mentioned more than once in the past, which broke that partition, that decree, that the upper meaning the divine stay above, and the lower meaning the physical stay below. This was the moment at Mount Sinai, almost where heaven and earth kissed, so to speak, at that mountaintop. They merged as one. Now heaven can come down to earth, and earth can rise to heaven, right? So, of course, there were miracles during Mount Sinai too, but they weren't just all these. They were miracles related to the communication and transmission, even of this very point. For example, there's a medrash that says that the voices of the Ten Commandments, right, especially the first two that they heard directly from God, it didn't even come like acoustically, like from the top of the mountain. They heard it, but the voice came from everywhere, including from the earth itself, even from the land that they were standing on at the mountain. The voice came from everywhere, meaning the voice permeated already down into the physical earth. And it was at this moment, and it wasn't just a wedding of heaven and earth, but there was a purpose for this, to pass on the Torah. And that this Torah is not only the object, it's the teachings that show how to make heaven and earth one. Okay? Now, it's amazing, right? Everyone at Mount Sinai really totally saw God, right? Openly. Everyone had that equal contact. So too it says the splitting Red Sea, even the maiden could see like Moses. So there was that very openness to it. And it became precisely because they worked upon themselves to purify themselves for 7 weeks. So now they were in a state of total surrender, to be just channels of the divine. And therefore, and in fact, it says that they heard that their souls expired, meaning that they heard that their bodies, right, were. That's why only the first 2 verses were they heard directly from the divine voice, and the rest from Moses. So this is all very great, but even, or particularly a Matan Torah event, is not something that happens every day. In fact, there are teachings that say even compared to Mashiach's coming, that there was only one Matan Torah. Matan Torah will not be again. I mean, of course, the revelations that when Mashiach comes will be greater than the revelation of the Matan Torah, as it says, or of leaving Egypt. But there's one thing that the Mount Sinai revelation has, is that it is the beginning of the whole official way of Judaism and Torah. And that virtue can never be taken away from it. It broke the partition, it broke the taboo that spiritual, meaning spiritual and physical, cannot mix. Now it becomes one. And now, from Mount Sinai on, yes, the spirit, we could bring the spiritual the spiritual, meaning the divine, into the physical in every way. Okay. So therefore, this is why right after, right? So therefore, when the Torah was given, so what are the very first teachings being given? As we mentioned last week, not the great high spiritual, high lofty laws and mitzvah about Yom Kippur or about serving God with awe and all this. No, the very first laws are slave rights, property rights, damage, tort, jurisprudence, things of very down to earth, day to day, and even if scenarios which are not so great, right? Someone hitting another, paying for injuries and so on and so forth. That's the very first teachings from the Torah, right after giving the Torah. Why? Because what's happening is that we're emphasizing that that's the whole point of the Torah. If we wanted a spiritual Torah, we didn't need the giving the Torah from Mount Sinai. The Torah itself was already available. If Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov had it, and the others had it, there must have been at least some unauthorized, non-copyrighted bootleg Torah going around. Right. So it wasn't that. It was obviously the experience to feel the spirit of the divine, the spirit of Torah, go deep into every molecule of the physical, and basically morph into one. Amish. So, advanced review copy. Yes, Jonathan. So now, okay, so they're starting to hear these laws, but how are they going to embody that? How are they going to express this? So here's where the Mishkan comes in, right? Because really, think about it. If we're going from this highest of experience, why are we following it right away with something like just all about like some construction project? Like, what's the point? But that is the point. The whole point is not that after Mount Sinai, Revelation, we're going to go and start doing a 90-day Vipassana or a juice fast or something to get even higher. No, we're going to go and roll up our sleeves, collaborate together in this great art building project, lahavdil, like some Burning Man project people work on the whole year. Big, major lahavdil, if you want that or not. But you get the point. And in these ways, you can learn from everything. And that is, it's a lot about collaboration. So it's twofold. Firstly, learning how to take physical materials and make something special out of it. Great, as to serve the divine. And two, to create this unity that everyone in this grand collaborative project needs to collaborate, everyone bringing in their talent skill, they're offering what they have that the other does not. And it's through this collectivism that we could create this unity, which is then that brings down the Shekhinah. So when the Va'asu li mikdash, to make for meat, and then V'shachanti, God says, I will indwell the Sechem amongst you. As we know, the famous teaching, it's in plural, meaning that not just physical house, but every individual of us is a micro temple, a micro tabernacle, mishkan, to a living temple. And right, they say there's this term prana mandir, temple of breath, like mandir. Our bodies are temples of breath. Leah, who sometimes comes on, had a yoga studio by that name. So in fact, this is what the whole point of the Mishkan is doing here now, is accomplishing, is that It is taking, it is connecting and making permanent this merging of the spirit, meaning the divine, with the physical. Even Mount Sinai, it says openly in the Bible that that after Mount Sinai, after the revelation, says once it's finished, after a while, everyone can go back in the mountain. The mountain doesn't remain holy anymore. What do you mean? The essence of God revealed, the Anoichi Mishaneichi, the highest revealed on it. No. Yeah, it showed for this time to do it and that it's possible. That's what mountain is. To show that it's possible to bring heaven to earth. But ultimately, the point is that it's not the top bottom project. Not that we passively, even lazily, just are recipients of this great revelation. That's it. No, that's just the beginning. That's beginning to show us what we can accomplish and do, and even empower us. And once we see that, we experience the possibilities, and then we creatively get involved and work to manifest and show that we can draw down the divine and spirit into the physical, into all the 15 objects, 13, 15 objects that are mentioned that are donated into the gold, silver, the copper, all the various furs, fabrics, all the, everything it took to make the Mishkan. And then it remains holy. Okay? And where is it being made holy? In the desert. Desert, which is a place which seemingly does not contain human settlement, right, by nature. And yet there we're making something of settlement. It is true, the land itself did not become holy. That is special only for the Beit HaMikdash. The 2 temples and the third one to come, that was only on Mount Moriah and the Har HaBayit, the Temple Mount, and that itself is holy. In the desert, once the Mishkan, the tabernacle, was packed up, the land it was on for that stop, it doesn't remain holy anymore. That way, it's like the Mount Sinai, right? It was also its holiness came back to normal. However, the objects of the Mishkan, that remained eternally holy. Moreover, I don't know if you know this, but what happened to the Mishkan once they built the temple? Does anyone know? What happened to the tabernacle? I think it's Gemara Medrash. I think it's Nignas Yeshaya that it was stored and hidden away.
Yeah, they put it in storage.
Put it in storage, long-term storage somewhere. So unlike the 2 temples that were destroyed and don't exist, actually the temple exists somewhere, just packed up, who knows, under some major, like some 3,000-year-old tarp or something, right? So, and that's also a beautiful lesson, because that was the first manifestation of this ability of us people, Yidden, bringing the holy into the physical in a permanent way. So that's why there's the Mishnah temples. And that's why out of the teachings of what to do with the temple are follow the Mishkan tabernacle. Tabernacle first to manifest physical. Right. So this point of taking the spiritual and bringing it down into the nitty gritty of the physical is also the theme of the month of Adar, and also, particularly about the most important day of the month, which is Purim, the miracle of Purim itself. So just to work backwards a bit. So what is the miracle of Purim? Purim, were there any great supernatural events that happened in Purim? No, that the super it reads almost like a Shakespeare, Lahavdil again 1,000 times, like a Shakespearean play or something, without any spirits or anything like that. So, right? Very. There's no splitting Red Sea like Passover. There's no, it's almost the causality of human affairs that lead to both the plot itself and then the undoing of the plot. Of course, it was divinely directed and right, with a purpose, but there was no need to rupture the laws of nature to get to the positive outcome, and we call it a miracle. That's correct. Yeah, so it's explained in Chassidus that there's generally two types of miracles. There's supernatural miracle, like splitting the Red Sea, what have you. And then there's miracle that is embodied in the natural, that it doesn't appear like a miracle. You could see all of the almost common sense ways how certain outcomes had to be a certain way. You didn't need any ET on the bike to start flying in the sky, to get away. Maybe there was a car got in the way or something, rather than something that really suspends nature. Yet it is not only as miraculous, than like the miracles of Passover, but there are some teachings that explain it's greater. The miracle that's manifested in nature is greater in a way than the miracle that's above nature. Why? Does anyone could think of why would a miracle in nature be greater than a miracle beyond nature? Anyone have any idea? All right. So here it goes. We may have touched on the following point in the past, but we'll look at it a little bit differently. All right. So when I say God, or I say God is infinite, or the divine is infinite, what comes to mind? This endless, infinite, beyond any possibility, not only of describing, but even to a package. It's like limitlessness without any boundaries or borders, right? Just goes on forever, whatever way you look, whatever you want, it is everything. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, Jonathan. I'm reading something in the chat. I'm very sorry. Okay. I'm sorry about that. All right. Maybe it was, whatever it is. All right. So for Shleima, all those who need. Okay. So that is all right. So why we think that we are limited sentient beings and God is everything. God is beyond. So he's the opposite of that, beyond all limitations, right? In fact, that's the most classical way of describing God. If you go through Sadyugon, you go through Maimonides, many others, you'll see that's the definition of God. Okay. So so what is and then there's some 100% that's right. We don't want to limit God, but if you think about it deeper, what's going on? Our world, there are things in the world in existence that are of limitation. If we say God is expressed only through infinite, the unlimited, then we are sort of saying that there is something that, or some place where God is not fully as present. Like if we see, because it's not just a perspective issue, that what really we think of infinite or finite is really not, because God is infinite and finite. No, our reality has truth to it, and physical things are physical and are limited, and all, etc., etc. So if we say God is just beyond, transcendent of all the physicality, then God is not as intimately present in the limited as in the unlimited. Therefore, there's a whole stream of more Kabbalistically, mystically oriented teachings, even if there's a philosophical bent to it, but it's more predicated on a Kabbalistic concept, that the divine expresses itself not just through the infinite, but also through the finite. And this idea can be traced back all the way to the Kabbalists of Azriel of Verona, the early Kabbalists, in like the 12th, 13th century, I think. And it goes down through the centuries to the other famous Kabbalah, Meir Ibn Gabbai. In his book about his Kaddish, he even makes a statement that just like God is beyond the finite, so is God within the part of it is finite. Because if you say God is only infinite and not finite, then you are minimizing, you are then you are subtracting from God's wholeness, completeness. So what, in a way, they're saying is that the true infinite of God, the divine, is not just that God is infinite, but God is also finite. Okay. And this idea, in a way, is the implied concept of that goes through Lurianic Kabbalah too, showing how the very infinite of the Ein Sof itself permeates all the way into the physical world, even into low, and especially with the Nitzotzot coming down, sparks and all that. And this idea, of course, also makes its way through the Hasidic teachings from the Baal Shem Tov and on, which is why there's so much emphasis on the Aveda Begashmis, serving God through the physical. Okay, so you see where we're going here. That again, going back to the Exodus saga, meaning the way it's in the last few parshas, that even splitting the Red Sea or giving the Torah at Mount Sinai, it was the overwhelming power of the infinite that was making an attempt to make contact with the finite. So at splitting the Red Sea, it overwhelmed the system of the finite of nature. And on Mount Sinai, it created more of a connection, but it was like a very early experiment of a great technology. Like it just works in a very basic way, but doesn't necessarily last. You need an improved model to make it long lasting. And that is the Mishkan, the tabernacle, of making an actual edifice where the physical, where the infinite, the unlimitedness of the essence of God, the divine, can be expressed through the limited, through the physical. And Dafka that way show the true infinitude of the divine. That God is not just limited by being unlimited, but is the absolute unlimited by being also limited. Okay. Not to be too limiting in our explaining this. Same thing. Words are limiting, but they are the vessels to share at times things profound that feel that they're greater than the sum of the words. Right. So we even have that in speech. What we're doing here now. So, so again, the Mishkan is in a way now bringing out, even revealing the true essence of the divine in its whole, in its full glory. That too is why, as we explained, maybe we mentioned a week or two ago already, that on Purim we say it's only in Purim that the Jewish people accepted the Torah. Kimu v'kibu Yehudim, the kimu masha kibu kvar, they started fulfilling it, meaning they accepted voluntarily. Finally, hundreds, centuries after the giving of Torah, it was only at the when they were victorious in Purim, the people accepted Torah finally, fully. What's the point? Because at the giving of the Torah, it was still top bottom. Right? It's so much so that even when the people said Nasiv and Ishmael, which was the correct response, not only correct, that's our great virtue. We said we'll do before we will understand, right? That was enough. Still, God had put the mountain and forced it upon us to create that total, absolute surrender. But it didn't come from us on, bottom up. It was Purim, and again, Dafka is specifically a miracle that was embodied in nature, and the outcomes will come through human, very very true, dramatic, but just human to human interactions down here without any great revelations. Dafka that accomplished in this miracle, showing that the miracle form expression of the world, the divine in the world, which is the infinite, becomes one with nature, the way the world is in its finite way, right? So you now see the connection, at least between this Parsha, building the temple, the tabernacle, the Mishkan, with at least the story of Purim. And as we'll see now, I'll share with you, it's also embedded in the name of the month Adar. And just before we get to the actual name of Adar, again, that is why there is no contradiction. You could say both that we are beyond Mazel, right? That we're not just limited by the Mazel state, or as actually there's a teaching from the Maggid that Ein Mazel Yisrael means read Ein as Ayin, the nothingness. That is the divine nothingness that precedes all of physical creation. That means that the Mazel of Yisrael, not the Ein Mazel Yisrael, there is no Mazel Israel, but the Mazel of Israel comes from that great divine spiritual state of Ayin, the divine nothingness that's above the Mazel. But even so, even though we draw from the Ayin, still we bring it down into the physical world, into even the Mazel state of the world, in a way of bariya, of clarity and healthy, meaning in a way that the world doesn't have to change its course of nature, and the way it's connected with the Mazel, but within this reality, we could bring down the Ayin, right? And that way transform the physical and reveal and purify it and show how the physical too is part of the divine. And this here is connected also with some of the definitions that we have for Adar. One is that it comes from the word Adir. Like the term Adir B'Amarim Hashem, right? We say Mikolas Mayim Rabin, Mikolas Mayim Rabin, Mayim Rabim Adirim, Adirim, right? The strong ones, powerful ones. Adirim Mishpereyam, they're breaking the wreckages of the sea. Adir B'Amarim Hashem, mighty B'Amarim Hashem, in the heights. Okay. So in this definition of Adir, we're speaking about how high and great it is. It's more lofty. But then look at the next line, the third line, that is 2 lines below. that Adar also stands for Aleph Dar. Dar means to dwell, like a dira, like a residence to dwell. Aleph stands for the divine, the highest level, Alufei Shalayim, right? So that means it's not just about being up there lofty, but it is also to bring it down, that Aleph, into Dar, into the physical. Again, to bring the unlimited, right, into the limited. The infinite into the finite, right? In fact, since we're going through this, actually, there's another Gemara on this with about that mentions Adar, but in a different way. Here it is, the Gemara in the tractate Beitza, Beya, as we say, where he brings down here, and it's a different type of word altogether for Adar. Amar Rabbi Yechon Mishim Rabbi Lazar Rabbi Shimon. Yechon from Rabbi Lazar, the son of Rabbi Shimon. That's the famous Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. That what? If someone wants that his possessions, or as he says here, his properties to last, to be preserved, and not to fall apart, or that not that people also know that he owns it, so to speak, then Yita behen eder, should plant an eder in his big land, in his land. Eder here means a type of tree, the eder tree. Now the eder tree is there are different translations in English for it. Some people say it's a cedar, like an erez, which is it's also cedar, meaning that it's a strong, powerful tree that certainly everyone knows. Or some say it could be an oak tree. Be it as it may, it's a tree that really stands out enough. Now here it says the reason that will help preserve yours, because Eder is a play of the words like what we just read. Adir b'marim Hashem. Mindful above is Hashem. So Adir Eder, right? But it could also be, just agriculturally, botanically, that this type of tree, it's almost like a Robert Frost poem of the oak tree that stands very prominent, and everyone then identifies his property with that tree, or maybe something about the roots spreading and holding up the land. Be it as it may, we see. By the way, this is a connection of what we've been intending. We mentioned earlier, and if we have time, we'll go into. If not this week, maybe next week, about the Kabbalistic trees. Because now here we see the same word. Adar also means a special type of tree. Okay? So we see that here too, that it's related to Adir, being powerful, mighty. But like even the mightiest tree, its roots go down into the ground very deep. Okay? So again, here we see the same thematic point we've been making, that even the loftiest of the infinite still roots itself all the way into the lowest of the finite. Inami, just one more piece of the Gemara here. Inami Adra Kishmei, or you could say Adra is Kishmei. That Adra is a play of the words, like Adar, Eder, that has the word Dor, generation in it. Kadami Inshi, like people say, my Adra, what is Adra or Eder tree? The Kaimal Adari Dari, that it lasts for many generations. So the word generation, Dar, all right? So that too is another point. Like we were speaking before, the whole point of bringing the spiritual into the physical, that's accomplished by not as much by the revelation of Mount Sinai, but even more so, building the Mishkan is not just that it comes into the physical, but that it's long lasting, it's permanent. And that too is the name for this month, Adar, again, like saying for multiple generations. You'd say for eternal generations. Some speak about 7 generations, whether it's in the Midrash from Abraham to Moshe, or even Havdil or not, the indigenous people speak about 7 generations, which is seen as forever. Okay. Then there's one more piece of the Gemara here that says also that a field that has the Adar tree cannot, people don't steal from it or take from it, and its fruits are protected. As here in the commentary in English, he says, as the unique odor of the Adar sap wards off insects. That's interesting. But you see that again, that the Adar is both showing a prominence, certain types of strength even, but it's very bound into the earth physically. And that is again, the whole point of Adar, that it's about coming into the physical. So now let's go back to our sheet. And so you see, we have here Aleph Dar. Aleph Dar, it comes with the word Aleph Dar, and which is also used, this term Aleph Dar is also used for the Torah itself, which is what the tabernacle is being built, right? What's happening? God gives the 10 commandments and the Torah. Now the Torah needs a place to stay. So that is the whole point of building the tabernacle, when will the Shekhinah come down, and where does the Shekhinah descend? Between the poles above on the cherubim, the cherubim of the Holy Ark, within which are the 10 commandments and the whole Torah scroll, whether in it or alongside it, outside it, different opinions. But that's the point. Yes, we build the edifice, we make that to show us in the physical, but ultimately it's all, where's the source of the spirit? Where's the point of merging? Is the Torah itself. Davar tziva l'alef dar, right? We say in Shachrit Daven that God, this davar, what He's told, the Torah He gave us is for that, because 1,000 generations is a limited way of saying forever. Remember, forever is common. Davar tziva l'alef dar, right? From Divrei Hayamim. Okay. So that again is expressing this bringing together the divine with the physical. And that too, we'll give 2 more definitions. And maybe we'll share that. And let's see, time permitting, let's see what we can do. Idra is like, remember we were learning the Idra Rabbe, Idra Zuta. It could either mean a convergence place in a half circle, or it could be the threshing room where you thresh the harvested wheat grains. That too is showing a certain edifice, a certain thing connected with the earth. Aleph Doron, the word Doron is the word for gift. So Aleph Doron would mean bringing again the Aleph, the highest state of the divine, the Amufay Shalaylam, as we say, the master of the world. That's Aleph. Bring it Doron as a gift, is gifted into us. The Torah is also is called a Doron, a gift. So again, it's the Torah that is making it possible to keep the physical and spiritual together. There's some more acronyms and ideas related to Adar. I think we'll keep some of it for next week. Just to connect another related to this. Was another facet related to the month of Adar, and then maybe next week we could cover the other ones. And that is, as you see on the screen, I don't know, it's not enlarging now, but if you see it, great. Here at the end. So here, the mazel, what is the mazel for this month? Actually, we're talking about that whether there is mazel, no mazel to Israel, and we came on that really we're taking the beyond mazel state and bringing it into the mazel, right? So the mazel is, thanks, maybe I should add those 2 letters to it here. I'll make it smaller. Oops. To do the Hebrew. Right. All right. So the mazel of this month is Dagim, which is Pisces, fish. Right? What are fish? So fish, twofold. First of all, it's known as Nuneyama, fish of the sea, meaning that their habitat is in a concealed state. What in Kabbalah we speak about Alma de Iskasia, world of concealment. In fact, I had a dear friend who had a frum heavy metal band called Alma de Iskasia, the world of right, which is like the sea, which is hidden. So on the one hand, yes, it's hidden, but on the other hand, also the fish, as we know, is related to the tzaddik, is also related to being in this like we say, the sea of Torah, the sea of the mysteries, and so on. That's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is also that it's a state, not in a positive way, but maybe even negative. The lowest state in the world, the subterranean, right? And like some of the only places that have yet to be explored in the whole on the whole planet Earth is in the deepest recesses of the oceans. They say there's so much more to find. That's like truly the lowest, the most concealed. Somewhere in the Pacific, there's even a deep ridge that goes down thousands of feet, famous, like the deepest part of the ocean, which I think only the last decade or so they were able to explore. But be it as it may, that is what fish are. So it's Pisces.
Baruch, isn't there also an Indian that because they can't close their eyes, they're always keeping their eyes open, so they're not susceptible to be Mekabel Ayin Hara?
Very good. Yes, 100%. So it's called Eina Pekicha, the awakened eye. Yes. Actually, there's two animals that have that, both the fish and the deer. Sometimes it says a deer sleeps with one eye open, one eye closed. But the fish is, yes, it's known as Eina Pekicha. Pekicha means both open and also being wise, being alert.
Okay.
So I actually did this doesn't have to do with fish, but in my excuse me, in my ways of wasting time and surfing YouTube, I came across a program of how only recently they figured out that sperm whales do sleep. They take like these 10-15 minute naps. And until now, they thought that they keep their eyes open even if they do sleep or rest. But no, they proved that their eyes are actually closed, because even when a boat bumped into it, even though it should, if the eyes were open, it would have seen the boat and gotten away. You know what I mean? So yeah, but fish, I mean, are not mammals like whales, and fish. If you stare 24 hours in your aquarium, I think you're right. Their eyes don't close. Yeah, so there is that, certainly that. So that, as you say, it is the opposite of the Ayin Hara and that way. The other part is also, right, obviously the fruits aren't new, right? Fish have many eggs. That's why we eat it also Rosh Hashanah, being very fruitful. It's a time after the beginning of the growth, Shvat, it's a time for things to become fruit. Also, the name Purim has like the letters for pru in it, right? To multiply, and maybe even the word bari has like ravu or ravi or something like that, maybe also meaning a time to, as we were saying before, that the spiritual now is merging with the physical to actually reproduce.
Baruch, it's not only the word Peru, but it's Peru Yam.
Very good. And so again, like the sea here, right?
Exactly.
To fortify. Very good. And the fish in it. Very good. Let me just get back to the share screen. Yeah. So now the letters of fish, as we know, is Daled and Gimel. What does Daled and Gimel represent? So there's actually, I could make it a little bigger here. Okay, hopefully that helps. So there's a Gemara that says Aleph Beis Gimel Daled. I think Aleph Beis is, what is it, Arer and Bracha, and then Gimel Daled stands for Gemoil Dalim. To give like to provide, to almost give charity, give sustenance to the Dalim, those impoverished. Okay. So according to this, the Gemoil is the giver, Dalim is the receiver, right? So the Gimel is giving, like the G of Gimel, and it doesn't work in English. Daled, depositing, or something, doesn't work that way. Dalim is the poor person receiving, right? Like the famous beginning of the tractate Shabbos, of the person giving the poor man food through the window, the door, right? So that's the Gemara. So that's the giver, right? So this is the merge. So and that, what are the letters Gimel Daled spell the word God, right? God was one of the 12 children of Jacob, right? And someone who just tuned in now has a relative with the name Gadi, which is God.
Oh, how did you know?
How do I know? I know. Well, welcome. And we're going to get to the Hasidic stuff soon, okay? And there were other stuff we shared I think you'd like. All right. So we're just finishing off here about the month of Adar and as connected to the Parshat.
Month of my birthday. Yeah.
What, your birthday? What?
Your other, yeah.
Your other. Very good. So this is your mazel. Wow. And he
Yeah.
said, and that's another thing, by the way. It says on someone's birthday, mazel geiver. Is mazel strong? That's another thing based on the question we say, how can you say that the mazel's geiver on a birthday is strong if we say there's no mazel to Israel? So that's the whole point. When a person is born and brought into this world, and we commemorate it every year, that is showing the emergence of the person in a way of merging soul with body, the highest state of the spiritual, of the divine with the physical. And to do that, I'm just muting you, iPhone, just not to have white noise, but whenever you want to tune in, please do. So that's what a birthday is commemorating, that we're here on planet Earth in the physical body. So therefore, to the contrary, as we were saying before, we're taking that state of ayin, the divine, absolute, infinite nothingness, and bringing it into our finite beings in the mazel state. And that's why mazel geiver, that means we're empowering our mazel by bringing the beyond mazel into the mazel. All right. So therefore, iPhone, it's very auspicious that your birthday is in this month. My sister's is also in this month. We're going to spell it. So now the name God itself, actually, if you look in Bereshis, when he's named God, Gudud, and as we say, Gudud, Yugudenu, and all that stuff, right? And in fact, the name God, and Rashi even says this, means the definition Ben is the name. God. And Rashi says that God, what does it mean? Ba mazel tov. That it came a good mazel, fortune. So the name God means mazel. So not only is this month, like we said before from the Gemara Tainus, that's Baryeh Mazel, it's so clear and strong, but it actually, the name of the month means Mazel. What do we mean the name of the month? Being Pisces, which are the letters Gimel of Dag, Gimel Dalet, that is best expressed through in our month. because it means, again, mazel. Now, okay. So now let me ask you the following. If that's the whole point to bring out Gomel Dalim, why shouldn't the mazel, the word, shouldn't it be straight Gimel Daled, giver to receiver? Why is it the opposite? It's actually Daled Gimel. That's how we spell fish. First the receiver, then the giver. You understand the shaila? Like the giver gives to the receiver, so that makes sense. But when we put a letter first, that means we're starting. That is the source of giving or emanating. So if we put the receiving end at the beginning, then we're saying that the receiver is actually the giver, and that the giver is actually the receiver. Right? So in a way, yes, it's deliberate for that. First of all, we know V'napaychu, the whole month, is one of reversal opposites. So whatever was normally receiver becomes giver and vice versa. Okay, that's a cute answer, but there's some. Okay, welcome Avraham also who tuned in. Very happy Chaver joining as we go along. Great. So. Right? So what does it make sense? And if it's the receiver giving, then it's really a giver, not a receiver. Okay. So to answer that, I'm going to plug in here something more. And that is also, as we know from Kabbalah and Sefer Yetzirah, that every month has its own unique combination of the 4 letters of Yud Kei Vav Kei, God's name. Right? That let's say Nisan is Yud is the normal pattern, Yud Kei Vav Kei, and so on and so forth. This month, this is the combination. Hey, Vav Yud. So what's going on here? It's just like the word dog, where the receiver is at the beginning of the word, that the receiver is the giver, and the givers are the receivers. Hey, Yud Kei Vav Kei, normal, right? If we spell Yud, I'm just going to put for sacredness the lines in between. So what is the normal state? Yud Kei means Yud is the giver. It actually represents the point of masculinity, even a source of emanation, and it is giving to the receiver, the Hey, which is this expanded, right, 3-lined form, which represents the feminine. Okay, so it's first Yud expanded into Hey, and then we go a second step from the Vav, which is a longer extension of the masculine, now taking it even lower into the second Hey, the lowest Hey, which represents all the way down here in this physical world, let's say. Okay, so this is a normal progressional logical pairing. Giver, receiver, higher state, then giver, receiver on a lower state. But in this month of Adar, we take both receivers and we put them in the front, and even the givers we reverse in a way that the beginning of the giving is actually at the very end. So what's going on here? So to answer that, actually, again, we could plug in from the Parsha. What are the very first words of our Parsha? Let me just pull it up. I think I have, do I have it open yet? Which parakim are we? Chafei, 25? Yes. Okay. The very first opening of the Parsha, very first words. Rabbi Israel speak to Terumah. They should take to me Terumah. That means what they're donating to their donations to the Mishkan Tabernacle. And the word here is Terumah, which Terumah means it has 2 meanings. and this is also important. And one is meaning to separate. When we allocate something. Let's say we have I don't know. Let's say $1,000 in wherever in a drawer, and we take giving $100 of that, donating it, right? So that's the terumah. We're separating the 100 from the other 900 to give a donation, and that is given. That's one definition. Terumah could also mean from the word harama, to elevate, to rise, and they're both important. And that is the whole point of the work with the Mishkan, to do these two ways, as hopefully we'll expand a bit. Yet, even without that, even before that, rather, this is sort of, this doesn't make sense grammatically. The yichuli truma, you should take to me. First of all, to me, truma. It almost sounds like yeshivish English, you know. You want to take to me the Gemara, you know. So actually Rashi says li means for lishmi, for my name, for my sake. It means that to give this donation for the tabernacle, for the Mishkan, it was to be done with intention and with being conscious that it's for the purpose of not just building just any home, but as we said before, a home where the indwelling of the highest, loftiest, infinite of divine could come in the finite. Okay. So, but still, what is the veyichun you should take? It should be, you should give. It just doesn't make sense. So here, we see again something where the giver is actually defined as the receiver. It's as if we're saying here that when we donate, when the people donate to the higher cause, it's not just that they're giving up, but they're actually receiving. Maybe they're receiving even more in a way. They're taking li, they're taking the very essence of the divine itself. Because when we are giving, and this is actually, I think this is a teaching of the Sfas Emes, that when being that everything in the world is of the divine, right? So what does it mean that we're giving to begin with? It doesn't make sense. If everything I have and everything that, and even my mere existence, is because of the divine and is right, and the divine and God has everything already. So how can I even give anything to God if God already owns it all already, right? But yet we still go through the gesture of giving, because that's part of the interplay. That we not only that is so that we could even be aware that everything is God, that there's no possibility to quote unquote give to God because God has it all. But yet we tap into that state of absolute giving and devotion, meaning of total putting emptying ourselves, even so to speak, to be a vessel to channel that Shekhinah into us and through the Beis Mikdash. That by us giving, we're actually receiving, right? You know, sometimes they say, even I don't know if it's directly related, but they say sometimes the greatest tzedakah is those that if a poor person gives another poor person tzedakah. That's one of the highest states of tzedakah, because we're taking the one who's normally the receiver and making a giver, showing that even someone that's unfortunately on the lowest economic state can also reflect that great divine gesture of giving. And a lot of Kabbalah is like that also, that not just to be a makabel, a receiver, but the true receiver is the one that could give off, almost like an open channel where both ends of a pipe, let's say, are open. You let it flow through. So you're receiving, but it's in order to pass through to give on. So that way is when we really transform the receiver, the one on the bottom, on the lowest rung. And when he's able to transform and become an emanator, a shiner, that the darkness, so to speak, that absorbs the light, it now becomes a source of light, and in all different ways. That again, we are flipping it. We're saying that the receiver becomes a giver. That's the vehicle, and that's the vehicle of the parsha again, and also again that it goes back to where is it? Here, the both that the receivers, which are the two hays, now become the givers to the Vav, and so too that the name that is Dag. That is the name of the month. That the Dalid, which is normally the receiver, is now the giver. Okay. And just to end off this part is that the reason why the receiver in this case can be a giver is embedded in the very letter itself of Dalet. What is a Dalet? Look, here is a Resh, right? Here's a Resh. A Resh and Dalet are almost identical. In fact, the word for Dal, right, means a poor person. There's another word for poor person, and that's Rush. Rush is an even lower level of poverty. The Rush is like, there's a verse in the prophets, well, Rush in Kol has absolutely nothing. So the reason, what the Rush, the difference between a Dal and a Reish is that where the Reish just has two sides, but no protrusion behind its roof, right? Whereas the Dalet has this little extension on the upper right. That upper extension is like a dot. What is that dot? That is the dot that of the essence of the soul. That is the dot of the Pintalayid, as we say. That's the same dot you have in the Sidurim in Moda'ani before the words Rabba Munasecha. There's a dot. We say that's expression of the very source of the divine presence in the person, and also this yes, and in a positive way, and in a way where that is the source of the ability of the Yid and whoever to be in a state of bittul, of total surrender to the divine, to be the empty vessel in a positive way. So that's why the word dal is a positive type of poverty. It's akin to the state of holy humility, right? That is that. Whereas the rush is a poor state, where that poor state is not coming from anything positive as much. It's coming actually from a negative state that put the person down in the dumps. So it's like it's the poverty. The poor state of the rush is actually either without the humility that should come along with it, or in a way that but maybe the person has too much self. Putting himself down or herself down too much, right? So that's rush with a resh. The other words for poverty we know is evion and ani, but that's not related to us. Now, if instead of a dal there was a resh, how would it read? Gemal rush, to give a beneficence, to provide for even the rush, who is again the non-positive way, the poor person without the pintala. Okay. So it's what is the acronym of Gimel Reish is the word ger, convert. This state of the convert, meaning that we're taking even the lowest state of someone who even wasn't Jewish, even maybe even related to the Rosh state, and elevating. But it still can only be on the receiving end. And this was actually the state of the Jewish people, or even Moses, before the giving of the Torah. We know that the Jewish people were seen as converts, but it was only after the giving of the Torah that they became to the state, a higher state, of not Rush, but of Dal. Okay? Nikimi min Afer Dal, as we say, right? Now, and here too lays the crux. Here's the crux too. Here's the rub, rather, of why here in the word dog the receiver can be a giver, because the Dalit has that pintala, that divine spark, that positive holy humility, and when you are in that state, then yes, then actually the real giver is the one who is in total bittul, total surrender, total abasement, self abnegation, self nullification. So in a way that just letting it through. So yes, so in fact, this is appropriate that this month is represented by the mazel, the sign of Pisces, of Dak, which is Dafke, where the Dal, the receiver, becomes the Gimel, the giver, and vice versa. And again, that is the whole point of, in our Parsha, of building the Beit HaMikdash and the tabernacle and all that.
So Baruch, since we
Yes.
circled back to the mazel of Dagim, is it possible, I was just thinking this as we were talking, that it's also a remez as to what's to come in the following month?
Oh,
Magid.
never thought of that. Thank you. Never thought of that.
I
It's
didn't either
possible.
until just a few minutes
giver.
ago. It's just like,
Yeah, you know
Yeah.
what? We could explore that next also next month. 100%. As we're talking, I'm just thinking. Also, you have the word gid, which means sinew or vein. It's also gimel dalet. Also the word agud, gadut, right? To bundle. There's different words, I suppose, that could be related also to God or gimel dalet in this way. But what we shared here is the very basics, as based on the way it's brought down into places in Chassidus and Kabbalah. I would just sum it up with one more vart, actually. And this is also, I think I saw this recently in the Svasem. It's beautiful. He says, based on what we just said, actually, and I didn't write this in, I'm going to plug it in now. There's one more definition to Adar. And what would that be? Just like we had here, Aleph Dar, right? We could say, I don't know why it's not, there we are. I'll just write it up here. I don't know why, that it is Aleph. I don't think it allows me to, it does. Aleph, Daled, Reish. You get it? Just like we said before, that Adar, Aleph is Aleph Dar, to take the Aleph and to transmit it into the state of residency down here on earth. So too, the Svasem says that Adar is taking that Aleph, right, the Alufa Shalom, the highest state of the divine, and bring it down, like we were speaking now, into the state of not only Dar, which is the positive humility, but even into the Reish of Rush. Not only to Dal, but even to Rush. All right? Okay. Gewalt. All right. So that's, okay, so we have that covered, okay? Did that make sense to everyone? How we connected the month, the meaning, the names of the month with the parsha, right? It's all good. Great. Now, honestly, there's more that we can unpack in the Parsha. For example, the types of metals like gold. What's the difference between gold, silver, and copper? There's discussion about that. There's also the meaning of the Holy Ark, the Arna Kodesh, the meaning of the menorah, the meaning of the altar, the copper altar, and the partitions, and even what this Terumah was that was giving, it was this donation went both for the sockets on the bottom of the temple beams, and then also for the sacrifices, and also the one-time donations of items, materials for to actually build the tabernacle. And we represent different things, facets. But again, and we could also speak, about the shades and other elements of the parsha. But I think we covered enough. I see it's already after 1 o'clock, and would like to share on the other two things that we spoke about. Maybe that will bring iPhone back also. You guys are fine. We covered enough for Adar and the Parsha. We don't have to elaborate more, right? Feels good. Feels like we did something total, whole.
I think